There we go. We're going to be looking today at iridology and the way it's often done online and why the way 99.9% of the people are doing it online is not good. We're also going to talk about smartphone selfies today. And as we look at smartphone selfies for iridology purposes, we're going to look at the why this is not a great idea generally, but understanding that as practitioners, we are all working under very different rules right now. And it may not be possible to get proper iridology photos from your clients. You may not have a beautiful setup like this to do your iris photos with. And for those of you on Instagram, this is my iridology camera, one of my setups, but you might not be able to have your clients into your office to actually do photos with such a beautiful setup. And so just want to go over how can you coach your clients to help them get better photos with their smartphone. Notice I didn't say great photos, I said better photos with their smartphones. So you can at least do some level of iridology with them virtually. Okay, does that sound like a good plan? If that sounds like what you want to hear today, let me know. Give me a thumbs up, let me know a booyah, give me something that lets me know that this is what you want to know about today. F.A. Poor, it is so good to see you. I do really look forward to seeing so many familiar names, both on the live webinar and on Instagram, and those of you who are watching on the Facebook pages. That's one of the reasons why I love it when you do weigh in, especially on Facebook, where you let me know that you're with me and you just post a comment of I'm here with your name, because I love knowing who the audience is. It helps me to connect better. I teach better when I know who's there. So this is great. Oh, all those hearts, thank you so much. Okay, that's on Instagram. Okay, so for those of you on Instagram, you know that I'm gonna make you seasick by moving my camera back and forth. This is an image taken with my smartphone, with my Samsung Galaxy S8, okay? And here's one of the challenges. Look at how big that image is, and look at how little of it is actually the eye. Okay, so when we're talking about smartphone photos for iridology, we've got some concerns here. The first one is that your camera itself is usually only an 8 to 12 megapixel resolution. Now, some are coming out that are a bit higher than that, and that's great. But the second thing is that this image, this camera, I'm just going to move this because it looks scary on Instagram. There you go. This image, in order to get it even that clear, which is not really very clear at all, had to be taken from too far away. So we got mostly face. The lens on your smartphone is not designed to keep a rounded surface, like the eyeball, in focus at very close range. And so what that means is that we have a real challenge getting good eye photos. Now, we're going to talk a lot about, okay, with the current limitations that are worldwide, how do we actually improve the quality of eye photos so that we can coach our clients as to how to get usable photos, not great, but usable photos that they can send to us digitally, and then we can do online assessments with them and so on and so forth, okay? So I hope you've got a pen and paper, because this is going to be the first part of what you need to know. And then we are going to look at a whole bunch of eyes and look at the variations in photography, because any picture is not worth 1,000 words here, I will tell you that. So here's what you need to know. Step number one, if you want to do a photo with a smartphone, you absolutely must be in a room that has no windows. Okay, because you can see on this was in a room that had a window, and this is a reflection of the tree outside. And it has obliterated this. This is the window. And then this is the camera, the smartphone, right? So we want no windows. The room lighting needs to be behind the person. So when you're in a room that has lamps or that has a ceiling light, that all needs to be behind the person's head or behind them, okay? So those of you, okay, I'm gonna do this. I've got a light up there, right? So I need to, if I'm going to do a good photo, I'm gonna need to turn off this light that I use when I'm shooting video. I'm gonna need to turn off all the other light sources, like all my computer stuff and all that. I got a window in here, which is not a good thing. I would actually need to be, I'm gonna take my camera with me. This is an interactive setting. I would need to be over here. And what that means, let me turn this around and see if I can make this work, okay? See how the window is behind me and the light is behind me? I need all of that behind me. Otherwise, I'm gonna have reflections showing up in the iris, okay? All right, hope that didn't make you too seasick. All right, you need to have a very white light. Whatever your light source is, you need to have a very white light, because we're gonna look at some different lighting setups and how they actually alter, what the eye looks like. Now, if you're a woman and you wear makeup, you know that the amount of light that you have when you are applying your makeup changes how your makeup will look, right? Right? If you've got bright light above your makeup mirror and you go into a normally lit room, you're going to look like you're made up for a Halloween party. You know what I mean? Right? If, on the other hand, you don't have enough light, then you're not going to put on enough makeup to make it look like anything. And so the lighting has to be right. Hi, LenCap. Hi, Aunt Social. Hi, Flying O2. Good to see you. So we need to use the right lighting. We need to have the right lighting. We need to sort that out. We need to understand how the lighting we're using messes with our photos. That is so important, right? Because the lighting you use will also change how your colors look. And that will mean that you can't accept the color you see on the image at face value. We also are likely going to need at least 2 other people if we're going to do smartphone photos. We need someone to operate the camera, someone that we're taking pictures of, and we need someone to hold an extra light. And what you want for that light is a very small white light, pen light. You can buy them on Amazon, or your local Walmart or your local stamp collecting shop probably has them as well, since we're all into shopping local right now, right? So those are some key things that you need to keep in mind when you're taking photos. Now let's look at a comparison. Here we've got 3 images of the same iris. This one, and these were all taken with the same camera. Now, those of you on Instagram, I know this isn't going to show up great. You may want to watch the recording of this when we post it to YouTube to see the details that I'm talking about. This one taken in 2017, and it's a 24 megapixel camera. So it's actually this camera, but with a different lighting setup on the front. And the lighting setup was LED. Now the LED tends to shoot blue. These eyes are actually not quite this blue. And I don't know if you can see, if I bring this back and try to aim this right, that this image on the left is much bluer than the other images. That's because of the LED light, okay? These other 2 images were taken with that same camera with this lighting setup, and I just shot these yesterday just to add content to this presentation. But I changed some things. When you have a camera, a professional camera, you have control over the shutter speed. Now, I don't know if you can see the detailed difference between a 1/60 shutter speed and a 1/125. The color looks a little bit different. The fiber definition looks a bit different because the amount of light that came through because of the shutter speed, 1/60th of a second or 1/125th of a second. So when we do eye photos, we need to control as many variables as we can, because if we don't control the variables, our data is what would be called dirty data. Any scientist knows that you must be able to control variables, and you must be able to account for the differences the variables will make in the outcome. This is one of the reasons why eye selfies done with a cell phone are not great, because you don't have control over the room lighting. You don't have control over a shutter speed to increase it or decrease it, those kinds of things. So not the best option. Now, why would I say all of this? I would say all of this because there's a lot of bad iridology out there on the internet. A lot of bad iridology. And for those of you who are trying to watch this on Facebook, I see that one of the feeds has pooped out on us, and so we'll post the link to it later. Iridology is about understanding our inherent patterns to enable us to make choices about our health. That's what iridology is about. And so we need to be able to see the color variations in the eye and see them accurately. Not see them as they've been modified by different light sources, different light intensities. We need to see them accurately. And this is why, again, photos that are not done with the right parameters, where we haven't controlled the variables, are not the best idea. So coming back here again, looking at these images that we looked at just a moment ago, if we can see the fiber structure clearly, and if we can see where the pigment is in the eye, we can ascertain many of the inherent challenges. So we're looking for the fiber structure. We're looking to see where the pigments are. Now notice I didn't say what colors the pigments are. And the reason I didn't say that is, again, because our light source and our light intensity are going to change how those pigments appear. If the lighting in the camera is pure white, and if the shutter speed is just right, we can probably assess the color accurately as well. Although I do prefer to do my assessment of color face-to-face in my office using natural lighting. And so when we see this, and again, as we back up, and I'm trying to make this a good picture for those of you on Instagram, you can see that the different lighting changed somewhat the hues, the colors that we're seeing here, the shades of color. And even changing something as simple as the shutter speed slightly alters the color of the various pigments that we're looking at. And so we need to be aware of those. And when we see these before and after pictures on Facebook, the first question we have to ask is, were they taken with the same camera, on the same settings, with the same lighting in the room? So again, if you want to try to take pictures of eyes using a smartphone, the things that you need to be aware of very specifically are a room that has no windows. Or if it has a window and there's room lighting as well, all of that needs to be behind the person. So important, not in front of. You're going to need a second person. So you're going to need at least 3 people. One whose pictures are being taken, one who's taking the pictures, and one who's holding a very white light pen light. Now, beyond that, what else do you need to do to get a good image here? This is even more technical. It's kind of basic and technical. I'm going to flip my camera around here. All right, so if you are the one taking the picture, and I apologize that I don't actually have another phone to hold, I'll use my mouse. If I am taking a picture of someone, I'm going to rest my elbow on the table. So there's going to be a table between me and my subject. I'm going to rest my elbow on the table because that's going to make it easier for me to hold steady than if I'm floating in midair. I'm also going to, with that, both elbows on the table, one elbow to hold the camera and one to press the button. Okay, very important because you need to be very, very still. The person whose pictures you are taking needs to put both elbows on the table and their chin in their hands to hold them very, very stable, right? Otherwise, they could shift a little. You could have a microscopic sized movement and your pictures are going to be blurry. Okay, so that's another really important tip for getting the best photos possible. And even with my actual Iridology camera, this one, I do the exact same thing. When I'm shooting the picture, well, not quite. This one is a bit different. I've got one setup where it's always elbows on the table. This one, because it goes right up against my client's face, that's what steadies us, right? And that makes it so much easier for me to get pictures that don't have wobble and shake in them. Okay, so let's pop around to here again. Iridology is not about trying to change one's eye color because the iris color is inherent. It's not going to change because of diet or supplements. Iridology is not about promoting cleanses. Anyone who tells you that if you do this particular cleanse, you're going to change your eye color and they've got before and after pictures, I want to see those pictures and I want to understand whether they were taken with the same camera, in the same lighting, with all the same settings. And Iridology is not about selling products. Now, many of us who do Iridology are also nutrition coaches or herbalists, and we often do have products that we recommend, but we shouldn't be using the Iridology to sell more product to a client. We should be using Iridology to help us decide what is the best product for the client. More is not better. Does that make sense? You can no more change the structure or lay of the fiber or the color of your iris by taking supplements or changing your diet than you can change your fingerprint by taking supplements or changing your diet. So important. This, you know, we look at we look at the iris, we look at the sclera, and the iris is inherently set. The sclera is actually very dynamic. So we're not going to see the iris change based on recommendations we've made. We can do all the before and after pictures we want, and if we are standing in integrity, using the same photo, the same lighting, the same photo setups, we will see that things do not disappear from the eyes, that the structure of the fiber doesn't change. We might see, if we take proper sclera photos, that things in the sclera have changed, because the sclera is very dynamic. You know that. If you've ever had a good hard cry and you've ended up with really bloodshot eyes from that, you know that sclera is very responsive, right? The blood vessels in the sclera are very responsive. And so we can, when we know how to adjust the settings on our cameras, we can get good photos of the sclera, and we can use the sclera then to monitor changes in how the body is functioning. Again, before and after photos are an inaccurate way of monitoring anything in Iridology when we're talking about the iris itself. And smartphone photos are especially suspect. But now you have some ideas of the better ways, the appropriate techniques to get better photos with your smartphone if you're in a lockdown situation and your clients are having to send you photos. So here's another example of eyes. Now, this is the same eye. This is branching out beyond this selfies thing. This is talking about before and afters. This is the same eye, same person. Look at the difference here. The image on the megapixel camera, the image on the right is a 24 megapixel. The lighting sources are very, very different for these two cameras. Look at the difference in detail from an 8 megapixel to a 24 megapixel. Okay, so that's number one. If you're shooting on a smartphone and you've got a 12 to 15 megapixel, you're not seeing all the detail that you should be able to. That's going to limit the value of your assessment, but you can assess some of the bigger things this way. When we also look at this and we see, oh, he must have done a cleanse. Look at that. Look at the skin tones first. Go from that nice sort of fleshy color to bright pink. The bright pink of the right, the image on the right of your screen, is because of an LED light, which is a bluer light, which is going to take this fleshy color and make it look pinker. Okay, so you have to understand the impact of your light source on your images. When we look at the surface pigments in an eye, and in this eye, we've got some black, which some of you I know were taught very bad things, and it's not a great indicator inherently, but it's not what you think it is. And this is it with the 24 megapixel. We can see it's actually pigment here. The color of the pigment tells us which organ is likely to have inherent stress, and the placement of the pigment tells us which organ is likely suffering because of that stress or prone to suffering. Now let's look at another set of photos. So here we have a print film. This was an image print film. This is the same eye several years later, done with a 24 megapixel with LED. This is the same eye done a few years later with a smartphone. Okay, so smartphone, 12 megapixel, could not get it in focus. Look at the light artifact from the room, obliterates a major chunk of the eye, cannot see the detail, really hard to achieve a good result. But it would be usable for major indicators. It would not be great for any kind of a detailed analysis. For the detailed analysis, I would absolutely come back to either the print film, the photo, or the digital. But again, look at the difference in the color of the eye and the color of the skin. So I need to acknowledge that the LED light is too blue, and that's what makes the iris look even bluer. And so fortunately, this is a client that I can see his eyes pretty often, and I can ascertain when I took the photos which one at the time of taking, how accurate were they color-wise. So that's really, really important to do. Again, smartphone selfies are not the best option for doing an iris analysis, but I understand that it's what we might have to use at this point in time. And again, photos in general can't be used to prove what North American iridologists are calling healing, because they just don't. One of the biggest reasons for people wanting to take iris photos with their smartphones is because they want to ascertain a before and after. They want to see proof of healing, when in actual fact, the proof of healing isn't in the iris photo, it's in the symptoms. So again, how to get better images using your smartphone. Number one, have two people help you. One holds the phone, the other shines the light, and the light is a very white light, pen light. Be in a room that has no windows, or have your back, as in the subject's back, whoever's having their photos taken, to any windows and light sources. Overhead lights should be behind the head. Number three, use a table. Have the camera person sit across the table from you, assuming you are the subject. Camera person rests his elbows on the table for stability. You rest your elbows on the table for stability and put your chin in your hands for stability. The person who's taking the photos needs to hold the camera in one hand and use the other hand to press the button. Use an extra light source. Have the light person sit at the end of the table to make it easier for them to shine the light across the eye. So if this was, flip my other camera around here. If this pencil was my light, the person who's shining the light brings it from the side. We want the light going across the eye, not straight in. So across the eye is what we're looking for here. All right. And be aware, it's going to take a lot of attempts to get a really decent photo, anything that has any usability whatsoever. So just be aware of that this is not an easy process, and it's going to take some time, so be patient with it. All right, so for those of you who liked, oops, I didn't mean to go there. Just a minute, I wanted to come back here. No, I really didn't want to do that. Let me come down here then. There, that's what I'm looking for. Those of you who want to see an example of how to do this, this YouTube video is one that we shot that demonstrates how to do this. So I posted the link into the Zoom chat. Those of you who are online with me can grab that URL from the screen. If I move that cursor, that'll be helpful. Right. Now, I also want to hold your feet to the fire on this. How many of you have ever on one of these iridology sites either asked for or agreed to do a free iris analysis for someone who has actually sent you their photos. They're very bad digital photos. I want to ask you, with a free iris assessment, what kind of advice is it good or safe to take from someone who's offering it for free? I'm just asking. Now, I'm asking this because I've had accusations lobbed at me that said, if I love what I do and if what I do is so good for so many people, why am I not doing it for free? Why do I charge for what I do? What does your massage therapist charge for what he or she does? What does your electrician charge for what they do? What does your car mechanic charge for what he does? Do they have overhead expenses? Did they have to pay in time and money to get the training they've got? Do they've got rent to pay and food to buy? Consider how much more helpful it would be for you to have a proper assessment and a conversation with a fully and properly trained iridologist, because you get what you pay for. People who are doing free iris analyses online are giving you a long list of things they see in your iris, based usually on very outdated methodologies, then a long list of things that you should do and a long list of things that they think are wrong with you. They're not having a conversation with you to understand who you are, how you're put together, and they don't know what you're already doing. They don't know what your journey has been. And so their assessment is not really valid. And I stand by that statement 110%. Their assessment is not really valid if they are not investing time in you to understand what your current lifestyle is and what you're willing to do. How are you going to pick through that long list of things that they've posted for you to choose where to begin? You get what you pay for. Now, I don't even do iris assessments online, and I'm not even selling an iris assessment now, so don't go thinking that I'm trying to self-promote here. But when someone offers you a free assessment online, go ahead and send your photos in, but be very careful with the information they give you. I've seen many of these free analyses, and quite frankly, they frighten the daylights out of me. Diagnosing, as in naming diseases, telling people to quit medications, giving all kinds of advice without knowing much, if anything, about the person. Now, don't get me wrong, I'm not a fan of pharmaceuticals, but I also know that most meds should not be stopped cold turkey. And I know that some meds may be controlling a situation and actually preserving a person's life and may be necessary for that person to live. And we can use that time that that person is on that medication to help us find other answers and better answers for the client. So quitting meds cold turkey is not a great idea. Since the vast iridology of the vast majority of iridologists who are in North America are not licensed medical practitioners, they should not be giving medical advice. And you know what? It gives the rest of us a very, very bad name. So my suggestion is a free iris assessment is not a good thing. It's also unfair to the practitioner. Would you go to a doctor whom you had never met, but you knew they were a doctor, you're at a dinner party together? Would you go to that doctor and say, "Doc, I've got this rash in my butt," and expect the doctor to give you free advice? Not likely. And I would applaud that doctor if the doctor said, "Sure, I'll give you free advice. Drop your pants right here so I can have a look." Right? That would be a fair thing to say. Okay, get off that soapbox. The next session, and this is the only commercial you're getting today, of Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology Assessment System, is starting in about 6 or 7 weeks. Registration is open, and I'm inviting you to join me for an info webinar that is happening on Thursday, August 27th at 5 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. Now, I don't know what time zone you're in, and you're going to have to go to yeah, that didn't go through right. There we go. You're going to have to go go to a time zone converter to figure out what time this is going to be for you. So for those of you who are on the webinar live with me, that first link that I said I posted in the wrong place. So there you go. That is to the Zoom, the YouTube recording of how to do selfies. And if you would like to join me for the info webinar, and this is a no obligation thing, join me here at iridology.education/webinar. Hop over there and get registered for it. In here, we're going to talk about the Confident Nutritionist Dynamic Iridology Assessment System, what's included in the training in this course, how it will benefit you as a practitioner, and how it will benefit your clients, because that's important as well. This program, just in a nutshell, teaches holistic constitutional iridology to help practitioners like you assess your clients quickly and accurately, and to help you to create doable programs. So programs that your clients can actually stick with, not this long list of things that could be done, but literally create a next step. What's the next step your client needs to do to progress their health? And then what's the step after that? And what's the step after that? So this webinar will teach you many things about running a more efficient practice, because we really want that. We want to have efficient but heart-centered practice. And so I encourage you to join me for that. Again, registration is required, and you can register at iridology.education/webinar. And so with that, I thank you for being with me today. I'm not seeing any questions or comments on any of the portals that we were broadcasting to. But certainly, if you have a question or comment, do engage with me, whether it's on Instagram or whether it's on Facebook, and we'll make sure that you get the answers you are looking for. Thank you so much for being with me today. I truly appreciate it. I look forward to seeing you again on Friday, when we will be meeting at 12 noon Mountain Daylight Time, so 1 hour later, to discuss another topic of iridology. Take care, and we'll talk to you then. Bye for now.